good for you. Come on. We'll think of another place. Come with me. Let's have a smoke break. Nah, not just a normal break. Let's smoke break. Smoke break. Smoke break.
30 seconds and counting.
There were plenty of years where there were guys who would dread being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview, guys.
Oh, baby! What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? C-Bot here with you. Live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a Wednesday afternoon. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the Smoke Break, powered by BetUS, where the game begins. Receive a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,500 using the promo code JOIN125 via the link in the description below. 2 words, baby. Draft Eve. We are just over 24 hours away from finding out what the Buffalo Bills are going to do in round 1 of the 2024 NFL Draft. We are just a short day away from finding out how the draft board unfolds. I don't know how you guys feel. Bills included, but also not Bills included. This feels like one of the more anticipated drafts in some time. Not necessarily because of the talent, and there's an abundance of talent, but because of the unknown, the uncertainty, the craziness that people are projecting to unfold tomorrow evening during the draft. So good to have you in here on a Wednesday on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. Just to give you a quick update on what we got going on this end. I'm here with you, obviously, right now. We're going to touch on the latest rumors, the latest news, a couple of things just coming out as of the last couple of minutes or the last hour or so, including the resetting of the wide receiver market. Major contract just signed in Detroit. We'll touch on that. But after this, tomorrow is when it's all going down. So I want to get it out of the way right here at the top of the show so you know what's in store tomorrow, because we got you covered from beginning to end. So this time tomorrow, noon Eastern, right here on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel, me and Rico will be linking up for our usual weekday show. We've been typically doing it on a Friday, but because tomorrow is draft day, we'll be doing it tomorrow, Thursday, at noon. We'll be covering the last little tidbits before the draft. Anything that comes out between now and then, we'll touch on that. We'll be taking your phone calls as well, getting your final predictions before we head into the draft. So tomorrow, me and Rico live at noon right here where you're at on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. And then when the draft kicks off, that's when we're kicking it off right here on the channel. It's the best stream of the year. It always is. And tomorrow is going to be no exception. We are live for the entire first round of the draft tomorrow. Me, Pierre, Rico, our man Kevin from the Dolphins fan base, a variety of other guests who may stop by, including potential phone calls, a variety of stuff in store for you tomorrow. But make sure you do not miss either stream. Rico and I tomorrow at noon, and then the entire draft live right here on the BF YouTube channel. And it's going to be nuts. It's going to be nuts because we have no idea what's going to unfold, but we get to watch it unfold together, and it's going to be a blast. So we've been hearing a lot of this, a lot of that, right? Tomorrow we finally get the answer we have been waiting for, but it's just like Christmas, right? The same thing with Christmas Eve going into Christmas Day, Draft Eve going into Draft Day. You're still wondering, even though tomorrow I get to open those presents, I get to finally know what Santa brought me, right? I still want to know right now what it is. I still can't help but wait that next 24 hours. It's killing me. I want to know what's in that big box. I want to know what's in the stocking. That's where I'm at right now. I'm reaching my peak. I have had enough of waiting. Thankfully, we only have a little over 24 hours left to go. But up until now, things have been getting a little bit more spicier for the Buffalo Bills. Things coming out surrounding the Bills and what Brandon Beane could potentially do tomorrow. The latest coming out surrounding the Buffalo Bills has been primarily focused around these Bills trading up in the first round. Now, we've heard the potential of trading back. We've heard the potential of Brandon Beane being content where he is at 28. No need to move up, right? We've heard the talks about these Bills not needing a bona fide wide receiver one. It's not conducive to winning in today's game. It's not necessary. The Bills don't need it to succeed. But it's funny how when we're about right at the starting line, right when we're about to get into the real thing, you're starting to hear more and more about the Bills trading up. I personally think that's because the closer we get here, the more people are getting real intel, the more insiders are getting real tapped in. They're hearing things from trusted sources. And what we are hearing right now is that the Buffalo Bills are looking to trade up. We have been monitoring Twitter as we all have been doing this. We've been monitoring Twitter like crazy for the last week, but no more so than the last couple of days. Shout out to my man Kevin Masari. We do the roundtable over on Dan Mitchell's channel and the AFC East roundtable channel. And Kevin was the one who first brought this to my attention. He tweeted this out yesterday. This is via Draft Campbell. Kevin says, quote, "The Bills are aggressively trying to move up in the draft on Thursday for a wide receiver." This was per at Draft Campbell on Twitter. He's been a draft analyst at Walter Football for some time now. Apparently a reliable source to some degree. Don't know him personally, but Kevin's always looking for the best in the biz. And I trust that Kevin, seeing that he takes the word of Draft Campbell, to some degree of certainty, I will too. And it wasn't just Draft Campbell. It was Benjamin Altright, who is also a beat reporter for the Denver Broncos. He was tagged in on this Twitter thread that Kevin put out, and Ben confirmed based on what he's hearing. Now, of course, we don't know what that means. We don't know who he's hearing it from, what they're saying, but it was some level of confirmation because Benjamin Albright is also hearing rumors being circulated that the Bills are indeed trying to find a trade partner to move up in the draft tomorrow, but we don't know how far they're trying to move up. We don't know the desire of Brandon Beane, whether he wants to crack into that top 10, whether he wants to move up marginally, stay in the low 20s, maybe the high teens at tops. We don't know. But it seems that the last 24 hours or so have gone from, maybe we stay, maybe we trade back. I mean, if you remember, we were on here a week or so ago, and the talks were about trading back and staying put. It feels like all you're hearing right now is talks about the Bills trading up. Now, you can look at it two ways, and I always say this. You can look at it the one way, in which it could be a complete smoke screen, and it's smoke screen central this time of year. Everything you do here from now until tomorrow has to be taken with a major grain of salt. But the reason I tend to lean to this being more accurate than not is because this is the time when the legitimate leaks start to find themselves flowing through the cracks. The reporters are out at the draft. They're talking with people in person. They're meeting with the powers that be. There's only X amount of time left between now and the draft. Whatever the mindset is surrounding the room, the war room, the organization, whoever, it can only stay in for so long. And in this day of social media, and this day of all these connections, of all of these people who are constantly spending their entire day trying to get just this much more info than the next guy. It's this time right now where you can start, in my opinion at least, you can start to put a little bit more credibility towards what you're hearing as opposed to what you were hearing a month or so ago when probably Brandon Beane himself doesn't even know what the hell is happening. But this is what we've been told. This is, of course, what Kevin tweeted out from Draft Campbell. Benjamin Altright doubles down on it. I also saw Jeremy White of WGR earlier. He had heard the same thing as well from a different source from this, a Walter Football account. Like I said, I'm not all that familiar with the account. I'm not all that familiar with the person who runs it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because that source, all of the chatter, and then other mock drafts you're seeing coming out as of, the last 24 hours or so seem to really be honing in on the potential for the Bills to be trading up. We saw, I'm sure you saw PFT, Mike Florio's mock draft just came out. The reason I like to put a little bit more faith into mock drafts from insiders and reporters as opposed to just draft scouts is because they're getting this info based on what they're hearing from inside the building. So Mike Florio could be completely wrong. He's been wrong in the past. Everybody has, but he has the Bills trading up to 12 in his mock draft to get Rome Odunze. So he's somebody who's tapped in, very well connected within the league. He's got the Bills trading up. Albright's been hearing it. You've seen a variety of different sources come out and either say we're hearing things or they put their mock draft out and they lean towards a trade up for these Buffalo Bills. Now, of course, we're a little over 24 hours until we find out, but I just find it a bit ironic that this is where this type of chatter has heated up the most. And I just think it's because it's starting to get out a bit. Think about it. I mean, you got to be honest with yourself. No matter how close to the vest you can be, and Brandon Beane's about as close to the vest as you can possibly be in this profession. He's terrific at it. Great poker face, never tells you anything, always says a lot without saying anything. You talk about it all the time. He's the king of it. But think about it. If Brandon Beane is actively trying to trade up, phone calls have to be made. These phone calls aren't being made tomorrow at 7:30 in the evening right before the draft starts. These calls have to be made, and they have to be continuously made up until the draft starting. I mean, probably earlier than, today, but certainly the pedal to the metal today into tomorrow. And that's why I feel like you're starting to hear more and more about this, because how many people can you call without something slipping out? If you keep everything to yourself, if you're not trading up and you're staying put, well, there's no need to leak anything out. Nobody's hearing anything about you making calls. But if you're calling the Cardinals, if you're calling the Bears, if you're calling the Titans, if you're calling the Giants, if you're calling the Broncos, every time you make a phone call, you're adding one additional person to the chance of a leak occurring. So isn't it a bit ironic that as we start to hear about more and more phone calls being made by Brandon Beane, we're starting to hear more and more about the potential for these Bills to trade up. However, we haven't gotten anything super concrete in regard to where exactly the Bills are trying to trade up. And you know it as well as I. That's if they trade up at all. But I feel like going into tomorrow, at least the sentiment that I'm witnessing and the sentiment I'm starting to feel myself, I feel like the expectation tomorrow amongst the fan base collectively, I would say the general consensus going into tomorrow night, the expectation is that Brandon Beane is going to trade up. Might not be what everybody desires, what everybody wants. I feel like that's what everybody feels might be the final outcome here. If you were to survey the field, the entirety of the fan base right now, that to me seems like the general consensus. I think I would fall within that. But I think we're still left in the dark as much today as we were however long ago in regard to exactly where Brandon Beane is going to wind up going. I never bought into the idea of staying put at 28. I always felt like there was going to be either a marginal to super type trade up. I always thought the super end of it was very, very unlikely just based on all of the factors that needed to go right. But the idea of staying at 28 just never sat quite well with me. If you remember when we talked about it, I had said that it just feels like there's a lack of a plan there. If you let the board fall to you in a position where you are in this big of a need of one particular position that just so happens to be loaded this upcoming draft, there could be 7 potential wide receivers gone in this first round tomorrow. And there's going to be a handful of those guys that are going to be generational talents, game-changing type talents. There has never been a better position to be in if you need a wide receiver than the current state of the NFL right now, going into this draft. And you can't argue to me right now that there's a team more needy of a wide receiver than these Buffalo Bills. The stars are aligning. The Bills have lost their wide receiver 1 and their wide receiver 2 in succession within about a month. And here's the answer coming around the corner. What better spot could you be in than what the Bills are currently in right now, losing what they've lost? This is a generational wide receiver draft. And to me, sitting put at 28 just does not feel like Brandon Beane's doing what it takes to get the most out of it. You got to go and grab your guy. That doesn't mean you got to go up to number 7 in the draft. Maybe you go up to 24, 23. Who knows? The plan to me, though, never included just sitting put. It just felt way too convenient. And it also just felt illogical. And I really don't know how else to say it. The Bills, to me, aren't in a position to just let things fall the way they fall and then hope they work out. They obviously, as it stands right now in the war room, have a whiteboard up where they have 1, 2, 3 guys, however many, that are their guys, that they view as guys, if they get in here tomorrow, will be bona fide wide receiver, bona fide starters, but potential face of this wide receiver locker room, the potential face of this offense alongside Josh Allen for the foreseeable future. They have those guys on the list. And they know as well as we do, if they don't end up getting one of those guys, what's the answer going into September? We know the answer as it sits right now, and it's certainly not the answer you'd want to fill in on the final exam. Luckily, that final exam isn't until September. But we're taking our pre-SAT courses right now, and those answers aren't looking all that great. The answer could be here tomorrow, and Brandon Beane knows in his mind what that answer is. It always felt like he had to go and make sure that answer was correct himself, as opposed to allowing the answers to fall to him, hoping that they were right. So that's why I feel like it is in the cards tomorrow. That's why I feel like it is going to happen. But it's not just the Bills being talked about in regard to this trading up scenario. This is the lunacy about tomorrow, and it's also the reason why I'm so excited, or more of a reason why I'm so excited. I mean, I couldn't be more elated to find out what the Bills are going to do tomorrow. But on top of that, it just feels like this draft in particular has lunacy written all over it. It feels like every time it's talked about, no one knows outside of what once the beginning goes. Everybody knows what's going to happen in the beginning, right? You're going to have Caleb Williams immediately take the podium, and it's probably going to be Jaden Daniels, then Marvin Harrison Jr., right? There's going to be 3 wide receivers more than likely in the top 10. But then after that, we don't know. We've seen a lot of mocks for J.J. McCarthy trading up to get a guy. Could it be the Vikings? Could the Giants do it? Right? Could one of these quarterback-needy teams like the Vikings, could they move up? Could the Patriots take a wide receiver? Could they stay and take a quarterback that could potentially be the future? Could one of these teams that we're not foreseeing trade up into the top 10, like an Oakland or Las Vegas Raiders, for instance, go get their quarterback? After the well-known picks in the beginning, we really have no idea. But we keep hearing about the possibility for this draft order being completely shuffled. And just about 20 minutes ago, via Peter Schrager, who is very tapped in the league, NFL insider. If you ever watch Peter Schrager's stuff, he takes what he puts out very seriously. He doesn't put things out willy-nilly, hoping they stick. He doesn't want to be the guy that just throws things out for the sake of throwing it out, hoping to be right. When Peter Schrager says something, it's because he's hearing it, and he has it on good authority. Now, whether or not it happens or not, time will tell, and he doesn't control this. but he does control what he's hearing. And he's got a lot of valuable connections, a lot of valuable insight when it comes to the draft. And about 20 minutes ago or so, this is what Peter Schrager tweeted out. Quote, I'm thinking there could be 10 trades or more in tomorrow's first round. Maybe not at the top, but once we get to that 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 range, I don't know how he defines the top. I guess he's only defining the top as within the top 5. To me, 5 through 10 is the top. But regardless, he's saying maybe not at the top, but once we get to 5 through 10, it sounds like things could get wild. Let me repeat this, okay? 32 teams picking tomorrow, 32. And Peter Schrager's hearing that potentially a third of the draft could completely Rubik's Cube on itself. 10 possible trades in the first round is what Peter Schrager is saying could be a possibility. And like I said, he's not just saying that for the clicks. He's not just saying that for the hell of it. I'm thinking there could be 10 trades or more in tomorrow's first round. You don't think the Bills are part of that? You got to remember, too. You have to remove the teams that aren't going to be trading up. Right? So obviously, the Bears, the Commanders, Patriots could trade back. But when you think about the teams that are going to be in trade up territory, essentially what you essentially get rid of the top 10. Meaning these 10 trades will probably come from what? 22-ish teams of the 32? The thought of it's nuts. Essentially, the idea of this happening would be the idea of half of the draft outside of the top 10 completely altering and moving upward to some degree. But this is what makes you wonder. If Brandon Beane has the desire to trade up, if Brandon Beane is the guy making the phone calls today trying to get up, who are the other teams making the calls and what are they offering? And is Brandon Beane going to be able to match it, or is it going to be worth his time to try and beat it if that's what it takes? This is why the idea of getting all the way up into the top 10 just never seemed like the plausible answer. Wasn't because of the lack of desire. Wasn't because of maybe the lack of need to do it, depending on how you view it. But it's the ability to do it, to me, that it all came down to. And when you're hearing about 10 potential trades, obviously teams are trading up for different assets. Some are going to be trading up for quarterbacks. That's not the Bills' concern. But you have to think at least a handful of these guys are going to be wanting to trade up for wide receivers themselves. What's it going to take? I saw Joe Piscaglia via The Athletic. They did a mock draft that just came out earlier today. He has the Bills trading up to 7 with the Tennessee Titans to take Rome Odunze. Just one more example over the last 24 hours or so of a mock draft coming out from a respectable source that has the Bills trading upward. When you start to hear all these things and you start to do the common sense conclusions here, it just feels like that's where we're heading, folks. You're hearing all this talk about the Bills potentially trading up. And then you got guys like Peter Schrager saying that he could potentially see 10 trades in the first round tomorrow. Just seems like everything's kind of coming together. But the idea of this right here was stunning to me. I don't know if that's a record. I don't know how you even go about checking that. But my God, even with your Bills' interest aside, tomorrow night is going to be nutty, and I can't wait. Because there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of talent. And we're going into tomorrow night with the draft pretty much starting at 3, I'd say, with the Patriots. Still unknown what they're going to do. I really don't know what they're going to do. Once we get to that spot, It's going to get interesting. And I thought that to begin with, but after I saw that tweet from Peter Schrager, I don't even know what to think at this point. But what I do think is that the Bills, to some degree, are a part of that equation. Now, speaking of wide receivers, there was, of course, and still is talk about the Bills not necessarily getting the wide receiver one in the draft tomorrow, but using draft capital to go and get a veteran wide receiver either tomorrow or before the draft starts, maybe even later today. Who the hell knows? Maybe we see something while we're on here. I would love it. But the idea of getting the guys that are available as it stands right now is starting to become less and less likely for a couple of reasons. We'll start with what I just saw from Daniel Jeremiah. The one guy we can start with here is Brandon Ayuk. Daniel Jeremiah is saying he's looking at possible teams for an Ayuk trade, and he keeps coming back to the same two, Colts and the Jags. Now, for starters, if the Jags go and get Brandon Ayuk, I mean, tip of the cap to the Jaguars organization for an extraordinary offseason. They had a brutal nosedive to the year last year, clearly had to make major adjustments here in the offseason. They've done just that. If the name Brandon Ayuk keeps being linked back to the Jags, and they wind up getting him, Jags will certainly be a much better roster going into next year, and they, to me, were already a pretty damn good roster. But we're hearing that Brandon Ayuk could very well be moved tomorrow. In fact, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm convinced we're going to see Brandon Ayuk traded tomorrow. I don't think the 49ers want to pay him. I think Brandon Ayuk thinks he's worth more than they'd be willing to pay him if they did want to pay him. And I think that there's plenty of teams tomorrow that are going to be willing to meet that price tag to get a guy like him in the building and to be able to take over, either with a young rookie quarterback off an injury for the Colts or to be able to get Trevor Lawrence to that next level. Because believe it or not, Trevor Lawrence is coming up on contract time. And has he really lived up to that number one overall pick, that generational number one talent that he was supposed to be? I think the answer is no. I think the Jags know it, and they're trying to make sure the answer is yes by the end of this season. I think Brandon Ayuk gets moved tomorrow. I don't see him re-signing with the Niners, whether or not he gets moved tomorrow or not. I just think that there's a major gap in what the Niners are willing to pay him and what he wants. But somebody's going to be willing to pay it. So there was an idea of maybe Brandon Ayuk going to the Bills. I would have loved it. But then again, based on the situation tomorrow, I personally would rather give up assets to move up and get a rookie wide receiver under a rookie contract than I would giving up similar assets to get a veteran wide receiver that I'm going to have to pay major money to. Now we come to the next reason why I'm starting to feel like this is becoming less and less likely. The wide receiver market has been completely reset by the Detroit Lions about a half an hour ago. And things are just starting when it comes to this. This is crazy. And it goes to show you why it can't just be as easy as Brandon Beane picking up the phone and saying, hey, we need a wide receiver one, San Francisco 49ers. What do you say you send Brandon Ayuk to us? About a half an hour ago, the Lions agreed to terms on a 4-year extension with Amon-Ra St. Brown for $120 million. 77 guaranteed, making him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Folks, Amon-Ra St. Brown's a hell of a wide receiver. But I don't know about that. But it doesn't matter because that's what the market is now. And you want to know what's even crazier? Jamar Chase is yet to get paid. CeeDee Lamb is yet to get paid. And the best of all of them, Justin Jefferson, he's yet to get paid. And if Amon-Ra St. Brown is getting $120 million. You better believe that Justin Jefferson's contract is going to be looking like your bank routing number when that contract comes across your screen whenever it happens, should the Vikings wind up retaining him or potentially they move him because they can't justify paying a price like that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I love the guy. One of the more pivotal pieces of this young and insanely talented Detroit Lions offense. Highest paid wide receiver in the league, $120 million. I get why they did it, right? Do it now before Chase, Jefferson, and CD get it done. But you don't think Ayuk's going to you don't think Ayuk's looking at this right now and saying, I'm probably as good as Amon-Ra St. Brown. If not, how much worse am I than him? Can't be that big of a gap. So then, when you get down to that conversation, as a Bills fan, you got to ask yourself: you want to pay Brandon Ayuk? Let's just say, I can't even say this anymore. This is how it works. Brandon Ayuk's not going to go to the negotiating table saying, "Yeah, I'll take a little less than Amon-Ra St. Brown." That's not how it works. Because if that's how it worked, Patrick Mahomes would be making a considerable amount more money than every other quarterback in the league. Other than maybe Josh Allen, maybe it would be, the margin would be this much, right? There's Patrick Mahomes, then you would get into your Allens and your Lamar Jackson and your Burrows, right? Truth of the matter is, contracts coming around the corner here. Jordan Love's going to be making more money than Patrick Mahomes is going to be making. If the Chargers roll on with Justin Herbert, if the Jaguars roll on with Trevor Lawrence, if the Dolphins roll on with Tua Tagovailoa, it doesn't matter what Mahomes is making. This is what happens now. Even though everybody knows Mahomes is the best, it doesn't matter. When you're up for your contract, I don't know why this happened. I don't know when this happened. It happened when Brady left the league, truly. But this is what it's become. It's insane. It is insane. Like the thought of Tua Tagovailoa at some point coming up here being the highest paid quarterback in the league, to me, I would personally love it. As a Bills fan, sign me up. But if you're a true to yourself rational Dolphins fan, how can you sleep at night knowing Tua Tagovailoa is the highest paid quarterback in the league? It could be a possibility. Jordan Love has had 1 year as a starter. Half of it wasn't all that great. He certainly came on strong towards the end last year. But he sat behind Aaron Rodgers for so long. 1 good year. The entire organization's built around him now. He's going to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league, if not the highest paid, come contract negotiation time. The same thing is happening in the wide receiver room. So Brandon Ayuk, now that Amon-Ra St. Brown is signed for $120 million, you think him and his agent are going to the table and saying, all right, we'll take $105? So you got to ask yourself as Bills fans, tomorrow in the draft, because there's plenty of you out there, and I understand it completely, I do. But there's plenty of people out there, right? I don't want to take the risk in the first round. I want the proven veteran in the locker room, and I want him around Josh Allen. Now, let's go get it done. Fine. Are you willing to give up not only draft capital, because you have to trade for him? Niners still own his rights. Are you willing to give up draft capital and then turn around and pay the guy probably $120 million? If you're lucky to get a reasonable negotiation going, slightly less than that, and even then I doubt it. You had a gun to my head. I would say if Brandon Ayuk can get a trade worked out and get his money and get out of San Francisco, because San Francisco's not going to pay, I could see him taking a little bit less. But I'm telling you, it's going to be marginal. It's going to be marginal. Are you willing to pay that as a Buffalo Bills fan? I'm not. And then, of course, there's the idea of all these other guys as well. This is why, to me, tomorrow, this is the time to do it. If Amon-Ra St. Brown's getting $120 million, Justin Jefferson's getting $160. That's how I see it. Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, I can't help but think it's going to be $140 to $160 million if this is what Amon-Ra St. Brown's getting. And it's no slight to Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love the guy. Right? That Lions offense, one of the more fun to watch. I love watching them. And what they've been able to, with your true, just, you know how it goes when there's NFC games on when the Bills aren't playing. Say it's the Lions versus the Cowboys. You can't tell me you're not rooting for the Lions. How can you not? Jared Goff, nobody wants him, thrown to the curb, goes to the Lions. Dan Campbell, who doesn't love him? I mean, when the Lions played their playoff game for the first time in Ford Field last year in 3 centuries, who didn't love that? The Lions are a very lovable team. And I love watching their offense, and Amon-Ra St. Brown towards the top of the reason why they are as good as they are. But nobody's going to sit here and tell you that Amon-Ra St. Brown is Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. He might be closer than we're willing to give credit. But the overall point is that this is what the market is currently for wide receivers. And the Bills tomorrow have the opportunity to get a guy that could potentially be this level of talent for pennies on the dollar for 4 to 5 years. That, to me, is why it's worth doing what you have to do tomorrow in the first round to get that guy. It's also why it's not worth letting the board fall to you and hope you get that guy. Because let's face it, if the Bills don't get a guy tomorrow, if it doesn't end up working out, this is the path they're going to have to go at some point. Might not be this year because they might not have the opportunity to do it. They don't have the money. They don't have the assets to give up at that point. Whatever. But next year, tons of free agents on the market next year if you go and look in the wide receiver department. It's only going to go up and up and up and up. Tomorrow, you have the opportunity to get a talent like this potentially for absolutely nothing for the next half decade in the midst of Josh Allen's prime. It just, all of it adds up, and that's why tomorrow is just so pivotal. And it's also why it makes a ton of sense that we're hearing Brandon Beane working the phones. Because the ability to just go and get Amon-Ra St. Brown, or the lunacy I'm hearing about going and trying to get Justin Jefferson, do you understand? I mean, Justin Jefferson, his paycheck's going to be looking closer to Patrick Mahomes' than it's going to be looking to somebody like Gabe Davis's. It's going to be absurd. And Jamar Chase is yet to sign. CeeDee Lamb's got, it's crazy. It's crazy. And the bar's been set. When's the last time you heard of a marquee guy, whether it be quarterback, wide receiver, defensive end, running back? When's the last time you've heard of one of these marquee guys taking less than the marquee guy ahead of him? You don't hear it. Especially when if you're a Justin Jefferson or a Jamar Chase, you're better than that guy too. No chance. Because guys who aren't even as good as them are getting that money. That's just the way it seems to go. It's a domino effect. One domino falls, a contract. The next domino that goes down is going to be another contract of similar value or higher. And it just keeps going and going and going. The buck never seems to stop. I don't get it. I mean, eventually when it comes to the quarterback position, one of these guys is going to be making $1 billion, $100 million a year. It's not all that far off. It really isn't. I mean, say Caleb Williams comes in for the Chicago Bears, there's not a single quarterback in Chicago Bears history who's thrown for 4,000 yards in a season. Not one, ever. One of the more storied franchises in the NFL. They've never had a quarterback throw for 4,000 yards. That is insane. So say Caleb Williams comes in and he is exactly what the Bears draft him to be. He is that generational talent. He is the savior. He is the next Mahomes. He is the next great quarterback in this league. It's not that far-fetched to think 10 years from now when he's still in his prime that we're talking damn near $100 million a year, because that's where it's heading. And the quarterback conversation is just a good example at the highest level of what all these other conversations are at a bit of a lower level. The wide receiver example is right underneath the quarterback. That's the way it's gone. It's gone quarterback, wide receiver, and then edge rush, where the market just resets itself. And then, of course, you got your corners in there. Your most pivotal positions all suffer from this same problem. The Bills wanted to go and get younger. They've done that. They have pretty much axed the majority of the veteran presence that we've come to know on this team for the last 6-7 years or so. So the idea of tomorrow being the day they go and get another veteran wide receiver to replace Stephon Diggs, I just don't see it happening. The only one that could be potentially feasible to me would be Brandon Ayuk. I don't see it. The other ones that you hear about, T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson, there's just no way to me, especially Justin Jefferson. I don't even I don't even know how I'd feel about it. I mean, at first, if say on the 0.0001% chance it ended up happening tomorrow, and you see it, and you're like, you can't even make heads or tails of it. You're so shocked. It's going to come to hit you at some point. Who's paying this bill? Because you can't keep kicking Josh Allen's contract you can't keep kicking that can down the road forever. And now you got that on top of it. Everything's lining up tomorrow for the Bills to go and get that young centerpiece. And I'll tell you, 5 years from now, if we got to pay him $120 million or whatever the hell the number will be by then, we'll probably be up to $200 million by then for the wide receiver. So be it. I'll be happy with it. Means we hit a home run. But it's not in the cards for him right now. But man, I can't get over this. Because I've been so fixated on the idea of CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase getting their contracts and seeing what that money was going to be. I never really gave any thought to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he just reset the market. Let's go to some comments here. Dominguez coming in here saying tomorrow's going to be a crazy night. At least we'll be entertained. I think not for nothing, if not for anything else. That's the best way to put it. Tomorrow's going to be entertaining as hell. No matter what happens, no matter how happy you are, how bummed out you are, I don't think there's any way you're going to hit the pillow tomorrow night without being entertained to the fullest based on the draft. St. Brown is a beast, underrated. Couldn't agree more. Love him. But I think the overall point made here is that definitely one of those guys, like I just said, I wasn't even thinking about Amon-Ra St. Brown's contract because I'm thinking about the major players, the big names. Amon-Ra St. Brown hasn't thrusted himself into that type of stardom yet. Just got paid like it, though. I mean, if you were to ask the majority of casual NFL fans, if you were to list three names, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You asked them to list them in order of how well they've known him or how much they've heard of them. Amon-Ra St. Brown's at the end, at the third spot of that list every time for the casual fan. And he just got $120 million. It's no indictment to his play. Like I keep saying, he's been phenomenal for these Lions, and they wouldn't have paid him this money if he wasn't. But it just goes to show you where it's at. Even if you haven't thrusted yourself into that next level of stardom. I mean, for us diehard NFL fans, yeah, we know how good Amon-Ra St. Brown is. For sure. And he's certainly a star to us. To the hardened fan. But most people, most non-diehard fans, they know Jamar Chase. They know Justin Jefferson. They were balling out forever in college, too. It just goes to show you what these contracts have become and what the reality of them is. Because I can't sit here and tell you that he's not worth it. It's just what blows my mind is the fact that that's the price tag. It's not that he's not worth it. It's just that's the price tag. And then my mind immediately goes to, what are these other guys going to make? And then, of course, when you bring it full circle back to the Bills, the idea of even trying to get one of these guys tomorrow, these veteran guys, is just, it's beyond a pipe dream. But somebody's going to do it. I'm telling you, somebody's going to do it. And I'll tell you this. One, I think Brandon Ayuk's getting traded. And two, I'm not convinced that the Minnesota Vikings are 100% all in on Justin Jefferson. Why haven't they paid him yet? And the other reason, too, is are they fully willing to pay him? I can't even tell you what I think the contract's going to be now. I really do think 140 to 160 million for Justin Jefferson, just based on seeing this Amon-Ra St. Brown contract. Vikings got to be asking themselves, our quarterback right now is Sam Darnold. Do we want to pay $160 million to a wide receiver catching balls from Sam Darnold? They'll know tomorrow whether or not that's going to be a different answer. I'm not convinced that he stays in Minnesota Viking. So somebody's going to pay these bills. I'm shocked that the Vikings haven't yet. That's what leads me to think that they could potentially be moving off from him. But you're starting to see teams too, especially the smarter teams in the league, and San Francisco is certainly one of those teams. I mean, San Francisco's essentially been one of the better teams in the league my whole life. Really. I mean, they're one of the best run organizations in sports. Hell, they traded the farm for Trey Lance at 3 and went to 3 straight NFC championships after that and a Super Bowl after trading the entire farm for a guy that never played it down for him. That's how good of an organization they got going. How good of a foundation that they have. They don't think Brandon Ayuk's worth the price tag. And it's not, and this is the key here. It's not that Brandon Ayuk isn't a great receiver. But my guess is that John Lynch is probably looking at contracts like what Amon-Ra St. Brown is getting paid and saying, man, we love you, Brandon Ayuk. We love you. We think you're great. We can't pay that type of money because we just don't think that you are that guy. You're a guy, no doubt. But are you the guy? Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions is the guy. But, I mean, my God, on the Niners, you got McCaffrey, you got Kittle, you got Deebo Samuel. So a lot of these teams are now, they're asking themselves, we got great assets here, but I don't know if we can pay. I mean, the perfect example of all time recently here is the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill. I mean, who's been a better run organization the last decade than the Kansas City Chiefs? They let him walk. Wasn't even a consideration. Why? Well, it wasn't because they wanted to get rid of him. Because this is what the market is now. And you got to make a decision. Are we going to strap ourselves up to this price tag for one guy? Or are we going to try and go get younger, get cheaper, and hopefully be equally as talented in doing so? And the Chiefs have hit a home run on that. Have they not? Now, the Lions did too. It's coming home to roost. Now, you got to pay these guys at some point. But that's the decision you're faced with. Do we retain them? Is it worth it? Or do we let them walk? And I think you're seeing a lot of teams face this dilemma. And I think you're starting to see more and more teams saying, we just can't do it. And I think that's what the Niners are doing. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what the Vikings do. Real King saying the Packers have a great wide receiver room to model after to me, especially for a small market team. I agree. The Packers are one of those teams right now that are so under the radar good because they don't have that major guy. They have a lot of good guys. They don't have a lot of great guys. And they might not even have a great guy, right? But they have a young quarterback making nothing as it stands right now. And they got guys who have come up with him that they're building around him. And you saw last year that team got better and better and better. I mean, their top wide receiver right now is Christian Watson. But they have a lot of good guys, right? Dobbs, Watson, 2 pretty solid tight ends, and Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. It's nothing earth-shattering. Doesn't look like an all-star roster to me. But everybody plays their role well. And that's an approach the Bills could potentially take. But the way I see it, I had this conversation with Rico last week. And I had said, when you're thinking about Josh Allen's prime, I equated it to being told that the world was going to end in... let's just fill out how long Josh Allen's prime, how much Josh Allen's prime he has left. Fill in the number and equate that back to your life and say you were told the world was going to end in that amount of time. Would you just sit back on what you had and be like, world's going to end. I'm just going to bide my time until it implodes here, until the earth caves in on me? Or are you going to go out and make every damn second of your last few years on this spinning ball count? And that's how I see this situation. Josh Allen isn't going to be Josh Allen forever. You don't want to look back and say you didn't get him everything he needed to be able to be the best he could be. They've done it up until this point, or at least they've certainly tried their best, but they haven't really in the draft up until recently. Finally, last year, we cracked into that ideology. We go and get Dalton Kincaid in round 1. Year prior, running back, round 2, and both look like they're going to be major hits for these Bills moving forward, cornerstones for this offense. Just to me, this is the time, though. This is the time where you can look back, whether it works or not. I mean, because at the end of the day, you just don't know. But the one thing, if I'm Brandon Beane, I want to be able to do is I want to look back 7 years from now on tomorrow night and say, you know what? Win, lose, or draw, we did what we had to do to make sure that in our best efforts, Josh Allen had the guy. Josh Allen had the best possible talent around him. Generational guy taking the snaps in Buffalo, folks. Waited a quarter century for it. And I'm not willing to sit here and let it be half of what it can be if it doesn't have to be. And I know people are very, very, protective and very concerned about giving up this and giving up that. Is there anything you wouldn't give up to win one in February? Is there anything? And even if that doesn't come to fruition, is there anything you wouldn't give up to be able to look back and know that all throughout Josh Allen's prime, they were at where they were supposed to be? They were at the top, towards the top. Entering dangerous waters here. It could go one of two ways here. When you're as good a quarterback as Josh Allen, you often wind up playing with multiple versions of a team. Go back and look at Tom Brady. He played with literally 3 different Patriots teams. Completely different. Nothing was the same except for Belichick and number 12. That's going to be Allen. At least you hope it's going to be, because that means your quarterback was good enough to stick around for 15 years. We're entering into that team 2 here. How are you going to kick it off? Nervous and excited. The best way to describe tomorrow for me. Maybe I'm putting too much stake on the draft tomorrow. I don't know. I've never felt as though I put this much stake into a draft before, but it feels warranted. I've never felt like the Bills had to get it right, obviously outside of landing the quarterback in 28, back when they got Josh Allen. I mean, that goes without saying. But since that draft, does it not feel like this is the one that is the most crucial to get right? And, it's not just wide receiver, too, by the way. There's so many other elements here. There's a lot that's got to go down tomorrow and over the weekend here. Now, I've seen a couple of mock drafts. What was the one I saw earlier? It was the Bills like trading back and taking a DN or something. See, this is just what I don't want. Look, tomorrow night, whether they move all the way up or stay where they're at or they move back a little bit, I don't know. When the first pick gets made, I don't want to sit here and just be like, really? I don't know, man. Some things to me in life are just they're just too obvious. They're just the right answer. There's no other answer. I don't know what other answer there is than to pick a wide receiver tomorrow. I don't know. Bills Fever saying we wasted 5 years building a defense that chumped up in the playoffs. The next 5 years we need to build around Josh. There's a couple of factors here. We got to keep all of this in mind. Always. One, we didn't waste 5 years building a defense that chumped up. This defense has been one of the best in the league annually under Sean McDermott. It's like death taxes. Bills are going to be a top 10 defense with Sean McDermott. It's just the way it's been. Last year, they had me out there covering Travis Kelce in the playoffs. The fact that they played the Chiefs as close as anybody did in the playoffs, probably had the best chance to win outside of the Niners with that defense, is remarkable. And it just goes to show you how good that team is, how really close that they are, and how small the margin is between them being where they've been and being at the pinnacle where the Chiefs have been. It's like this. It's not this. It's this. It feels like this because there's a lot of these. Right? But here's where I agree with you. They have built, essentially view Sean McDermott as a Josh Allen. He's the quarterback of this team from the coaching perspective. And they have built around their defensive quarterback. Year in and year out. Ever since Beane and McDermott took over, they have built around McDermott's ideology. They've had some hits, they've had some misses. More or less, they've done a terrific job. But I've come to find that they've done a terrific job in doing so without the need to have first, second round talent on that defense. McDermott showed us last year, outside of course, in the playoffs when they were down to fourth stringers, McDermott showed us that with a shuffleboard of guys, he can field, at the very least, a defense that can keep you in the game and not lose it for you. And at the very best, one of the better defenses in the league. That's why, to me, I'm in agreement with you when I say it's time to start building around Josh. Because one, you've done for the last 6 years as much as you could do to build around this defense. And two, Sean McDermott is a defensive head coach and a damn good one at that, potentially one of the best in the league. I think he can pick up a bit of slack here in lieu of Josh Allen being able to get what he hasn't gotten. I think Sean McDermott can do a bit more with less now, like Josh Allen has had to do when it comes to the draft. I mean, if it wasn't for that move for Stephon Diggs, what else have the Bills done from a draft perspective up until recently to get the most out of Josh Allen? And there's a reason why everybody always says Josh Allen is the guy who has to put the superhero cape on and go out there and win you the game week in and week out. Well, why is that? Well, because he's got no help. What would it look like if you kept building the help? We don't know. We had it great with Diggs, no doubt. But we've never had a young core. We've never had a team built around Josh Allen on the offensive side of the ball from the ground up. I mean, we really haven't. Loving what I'm reading from Bills fan 7883 here, because I completely agree with this. You are either making a serious reach for wide receiver at 28, which isn't a good idea, no matter how much fans want it. So you have to trade either up or down to get wide receiver. Oh, I don't agree with the Ayuk part. I didn't see that part. Don't agree with the Ayuk part. He's going to want to get paid like Amon-Ra St. Brown just got paid. I do not want a circumstance tomorrow where Brandon Beane is signing a $120 million check for Brandon Ayuk. But what I do agree with you here is it does feel like a reach at 28. Because it just feels so uncertain. It just feels like way too big of a roll of the dice in the spot that they're currently in. Where I agree with you on this here is that you have to trade either up or down. I completely agree with that. I completely agree. The game plan to me was never sitting at 28, and I can't imagine that's the game plan for Brandon Beane. It just seems way too convenient, way too lazy. Sitting at 28 just does not seem like winning mentality to me. Now, could eat my words. Leggett, they get Leggett there. They get Ladd McConkey there. Whoever the hell he winds up being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Now, who the hell knows? But like I keep saying, the whole thing tomorrow is a gamble to begin with. Do you want to decrease your odds continuously? I think you continue to decrease your odds the more you just allow things to fall where they fall and hope it works out. Brandon Beane right now has got 3 guys on his board that's going to be able to come in his opinion, and work out. Go get one of them. That's how I see it. And I really just don't care what they give up. I don't. Because you're going to blink. Me and Rico talked about this the other day, and when you talk about it, it hits. When you talk about it, it really hits. Say they draft a wide receiver tomorrow, and he's great. Contract's up 5 years from now. Josh Allen will be entering into his 12th year in the league. 12th year in the league. Say they go and get that top wide receiver tomorrow. He's a home run. They can't wait to re-sign him. When that day comes, Josh Allen will be entering his 12th year in the league. What does that mean? Well, unfortunately, when Josh Allen gets into his 12th year, it's probably pretty safe to assume that the 12th year isn't going to be the 7th year coming up here. Might still be a damn good, hell of a great quarterback, one of the league's best, but I doubt you're seeing him running over guys. I doubt you're seeing him leaping over guys. I doubt you seeing him scramble unlike we've ever seen before. I doubt you see the athleticism we're seeing right now. So my point is, who gives a shit what you give up? Because by the time you got to go and pay the guy that you're giving all these assets up to go get, you don't know what the hell this is going to be. You know what you got right now. Maximize on it. And the beauty of being able to do that, if it works out, the beauty of being able to do that is if it does work out and you don't have to go pay $120 million to Brandon Ayuk or whoever else, you can continuously keep adding next year and the year after that. And then by the time you do get to that 12th year, you're set up for success. And Josh Allen doesn't have to be the Superman he's had to be through the first half of his career here. To me, that's the overall goal here, and it starts tomorrow. You have got to set this team up for the future success of Josh Allen, making sure that as he ages, he has the resources around him to continue to propel him upward. Because the days are going to come to an end where Josh Allen's just going to be able to win you a game on his back. Because the way he does that isn't like how Tom Brady did it. The way Josh Allen does that is, oh my God, did you just see him break 4 tackles behind the line of scrimmage, get his head knocked off at the first down marker, extend the ball, and somehow get the first down? Did you see him scramble out of the pocket, get away from 4 defenders, throw the ball 80 miles an hour on his back foot, falling out of the end zone on a dime into the corner, or falling into the sidelines, throwing an absolute missile on a dime in the corner of the end zone, touchdown? Like, these are the things that will start to wither away as time goes on. But the more you have around and the more you're able to keep adding and adding, the less you're going to need that type of stuff. And Josh Allen has the type of body build and the type of arm to be able to play in this league for a long, long time. What I'm getting at are the special things, the little things that are just truly predicated on being in the prime in which he's in right now. Because that doesn't last forever. I mean, if you want my opinion, Tom Brady could come in tomorrow, next year, the year after that. He's still going to have that arm. He'd still probably be a top 7 quarterback in the league if he was in the league for the next 5-6 years. Probably would. But it's not because of the athleticism. Josh has the ability to be that pocket quarterback who can rifle the ball down the field, put it into windows, get it down the field, get it where it needs to be, and do so with the league's best. The more you build it up to be prepared for him going to that direction of quarterback, the better I think that this team will succeed as time goes on. All right, so we're a little over 24 hours away, and with that, let's go over and take a look at BetUS and the draft props, because as you know, we've been going over these all month long, and there is just an absolute absurd amount. I wanted to go in here and take one last look at you with you at what the lines are for everything, where it stands right now, because by now, the betting markets have pretty much figured themselves out, and this is kind of where everything's set up. So where I like to go down to, of course, is where the wide receiver situation starts. We all know first wide receiver off the board, Marvin Harrison's at minus 900. I do find it interesting that this has really not changed. We've seen so much else change. Like it was always Caleb Williams and then Drake May. And all of a sudden it wasn't. Now you'd be shocked tomorrow if it wasn't Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. This wide receiver hierarchy has pretty much stayed the same. You've heard people saying, I got a lot of people saying O'Dunes or Neighbors is better than Harrison. You've heard it a little bit, right? You've heard people throw that out there. Betting market hasn't changed, and the idea around what's going to happen tomorrow hasn't changed. It's been these 3 wide receivers in order pretty much from the beginning. But after the 3rd wide receiver is taken in Rome Odunze, which is almost a lock as to who that's going to be, that's when it gets interesting. The next likely to go off the board would be Brian Thomas Jr. That's a guy that's been linked to the Bills, right? Somebody to keep an eye on. He's projected to be the 4th wide receiver off the board. Here are the other 2 that are projected to go in the first round. Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy. These are the ones that are pretty much guaranteed to go in the first round. So as it stands right now, you got Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, that's 3. Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, that's 6. I also think Ladd McConkey goes in the first round. I don't see him getting past the Chiefs. I think that there's at least 7 wide receivers in this first round. I also think that there's at least 6 quarterbacks in this round, too, in the first round. Almost damn near half of the draft tomorrow, to me, is going to be wide receivers and quarterbacks. Now, these are where it gets juicy. And this is where you can start to talk about what the Bills are going to do. This is interesting right here. Who will be drafted first? Adonai Mitchell or Xavier Worthy? Now, essentially, with that question that it comes down to, who would the Bills take if it were up to them? Adonai Mitchell or Xavier Worthy? Right now, the team most likely to draft Xavier Worthy based on the draft or based on the betting market is the Buffalo Bills. I'll tell you this right now. I think Worthy goes before Mitchell, and he's the underdog here. I like Worthy to go ahead of Mitchell. Worthy's plus 105, Adonai Mitchell's minus 135. I'm going to throw a couple of bucks on Worthy to go before Adonai Mitchell. I like that bet at plus 105. I feel like Worthy's stock over the last week or so has risen. The last couple of weeks, you've heard more about him going up. Haven't heard as much about Adonai Mitchell. I like that. And I think if it were up to the Bills, I think that that's where they might wind up going if it were to come down to those two and they had their pick. Couple other interesting ones. Does Bo Nix go in the first round? So I think that the quarterbacks in the first round are going to be, obviously, you got Daniels, you got McCarthy, you got Williams, and McCarthy. I don't know why it's obvious, but it just is. That's just the way it's going to go. If it were up to me, it wouldn't be the way it would go, but whatever. You got Williams, McCarthy, Daniels. And then I think you're going to see at least 3 more quarterbacks in the first round. The one that's on the edge, there's 2 that's on the edge. Obviously, right here, you see Bo Nix over under at 32. The other one is Michael Penix. I think Michael Penix goes in the first round. In fact, I think he goes earlier than anticipated in the first round. I could see him going before pick 20. I think that there's teams out there that would really like Michael Penix Jr., and all it takes is a couple of teams. It doesn't take the whole draft board needing to love somebody in order for somebody to get cold feet, in order to move up, in order to make a move early. We see it all the time. I think that Michael Penix Jr. is going to be that one of those guys. I could very easily see him going before pick 20. So there's your other quarterback, right? Then you where was I looking here? This is just insane. I get distracted by this. This is insane. The amount of draft props that BetUS has is just absolutely incredible. You think of it, they have it on here. I'm looking for a Penix one. So I wanted to see what his over-under was on location for the draft tomorrow. But I think the line is at 4.5 for quarterbacks. And to me, there's 4 guarantees. 4 guaranteed quarterbacks. And I think Penix knocks it over to 5. And I could very easily see Nix going in the first round. I don't know if he does, but as you can see, it's set up on the betting market here to go either one way or the other. But you have Williams, you have Daniels, you have Drake May. Those are going to be top 10. McCarthy very likely top 10 as well. I think Penix gets outside the top 10, but I could see him going between 10 and 20. And I just feel like someone's going to make a move here to send it to 6. But at the very least, to me, 5 quarterbacks. Now, J.J. McCarthy, his over-under right now, this is where it's settling in at. Under 5.5 is minus 150. So this line is still pretty tight. But they're still projecting J.J. McCarthy to go within the top 5. I don't think the Patriots do it. And that would mean someone's going to have to trade up with the Chargers in order to get him. Because we know the Cardinals obviously aren't taking him. So that one's interesting. Now, Penix right here, as you can see, this is the big difference between Penix and Bo Nix. Over under 32.5, their draft position. Under big underdog, meaning for him to go in the first round is plus 195, pretty sizable underdog. Penix to go in the first round, very heavy favorite, minus 250. Now let's take a look at some wide receivers while we're here. Adonai Mitchell over 27.5. So we go back to that Worthy prop that I put in where it's first to be taken, Worthy or Adonai Mitchell. I think Worthy goes before 27. So Adonai Mitchell, I don't know. I could see him falling late, but I feel like that's a really good spot that they have listed for him right there. Where was it? At 27.5. Keep losing it. There's so many of them. That sounds about right. Yeah, over here, over 27.5. That's favorited. So based on the betting market right now, Adonai Mitchell could fall out of the first round. It's heavily favored at minus 180 for him to go past pick 27. Now, I just saw another one here that's interesting. You can bet on BetUS right now the amount of total trades tomorrow. And as you recall, I said earlier, Peter Schrager mentioned that he could see potentially 10 trades. 10 trades in the first round. Current line is over 5.5. Minus 165 is the favorite on the over 5.5. It gets even more interesting. These props are incredible. Total trades in the top 10 picks of round one, over 2.5. I'm all over that. Over 2.5. Give me some of that. Oh, minimum bet on that. Good reason why, I would imagine, because I think that that's a lock. I love, at least it's, in my personal opinion, that would be my lock of the draft right now for good value. Over 2.5 trades in the top 10. I think the Patriots could trade. I think the Chargers could trade. I think the Bears could trade. At the least, I love that bet. Over 2.5 trades in the top 10. That would be my personal, if I had to go in tomorrow with one top bet, that would be my top bet. But man, you guys got to go and check this out. We'll be doing some live betting tomorrow as well during the draft and before. I'll have a bunch of bets down to be able to track so we can keep it interesting before the Bills pick. Make sure to go and take advantage of this because you can only bet on the first round of the draft once. Link in the description below. 125% deposit match up to $2,500 on your first 3 deposits via the #1 online sportsbook in the game, BetUS. Link is in the description below. So you get that 125% deposit match up to $2,500. That means if you put in $500, you'll have $1,250 to play with. You also get to take advantage 24/7 customer service, 24-hour payouts. It's got it all. And I'm also take advantage of this. Seriously. I'm telling you, we got like 24 hours before the draft. Take advantage of this. First 5 people to DM me before the draft tomorrow, a screenshot of their BetUS account gets a free $25 in free play. And you can do what I just did. I took that $25 and I threw it on over 2.5 trades in the top 10. If you want to get in on that, you can do it for free. Just DM me a picture of your account on Twitter and you'll get one of the 5 $25 free plays. But I mean, I can't even, this is incredible, the amount that are on here. And I'm looking for a couple more that just have, the reason I love these so much, I mean, I love betting on sports regardless, but the reason I love these so much is it gives you a really good idea of the general consensus. We're a day away from the draft. This is how things are starting to unfold based on the general perception. Now, this one is the one I wanted to find. I'm glad I found it. Over 21.5 offensive players. So I think that there's going to be at least 5 quarterbacks. I think there's going to be 7 wide receivers. You got to think what? There's going to be at least 3-4 offensive linemen. That's going to be tight. That's going to be real tight. I really like that. It's going to see, there's so many of these that are going to be a lot of fun to sweat. That's going to be one I'm going to get in on at some point. And over 4.5 quarterbacks, there's a reason why this is so favored at a minus 325. I just think Penix, no one's going to see it coming. I think he's going in the top 20. Isn't it amazing, though? There's not a single safety. Or there's only like one or 2 safeties with high-end grades. Oh, man, these keep getting better and better. They must have added a bunch because this one, over 6.5 receivers is plus 300. You let me know in the comments. Do you see 7 receivers going tomorrow? Because I think I do. I think I see 7 receivers going tomorrow. Marvin Harrison, Neighbors, Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., Worthy, McConkey, And then I could see like a Leggett or a Franklin or a Mitchell, one of those guys going late in the first round. Ooh, there's a ton of good stuff on there. Take advantage. Link in the description below. Real quick word from BetUS. Take a couple more of your comments, and we'll wrap it up here before we get into a big day tomorrow. We got to rest up the rest of the day and get ready for what's in store tomorrow. Quick word from BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Maddie's saying Danny Mitchell crashed. What the hell happened? Is Dan live? Dan might have some. Did Dan get some inside info and they're trying to shut him down? What the hell happened? Dan's got to pay his internet bill. I know there's been some issues lately with StreamYard, but I haven't. Knock on wood, I haven't had any problems yet, which is shocking because I'm sure all the OG Smoke Break listeners know that there used to be at least one problem every week. Every week. It would be either the internet or the mic or something. I was on a streak of like just months straight, once a week. I was hoping to get out of there with just at least one, just only one. We've been on a hot streak. What else are you guys saying in here? Oh, I forgot I got a super chat from my main man, Richie Fresh. Richie's saying, get your wide receiver. In all caps, go get your wide receiver. You're not going to luck out with 5th-round wide receivers forever and people like Shakir. Time is now. Get it done. Me and Richie have been on the same page. When you luck out, it's great. When you luck out and get, Puka Nacua, it's amazing. When you luck out and get Stephon Diggs, it's amazing. Bills are in no position to be playing on luck and luck alone. Brandon Beane has got to go and try and make his own luck tomorrow. That's how I see it. That's the motto to me. Make your own luck. BT's in the house. Bartek, he's saying he's excited for tomorrow. You have no idea. I hope you're joining us tomorrow night, BT. And once again, by the way, for those who missed at the top of the show, tomorrow at noon, Rico and I, same place that you are at right now. We're going to be taking phone calls. Get your last final thoughts on what you think is going to happen tomorrow night. We'll be talking about our final thoughts as well. We'll talk about whatever winds up coming out between now and then. I'm sure tomorrow morning, there's got to be at least something that comes out. Maybe not in regard to the Bills, but you got to think there's going to be something of note by lunchtime tomorrow, whether it's a trade or major rumors coming out. I was looking for a specific. Oh, yeah, Kim Betts said, I think Rico's laptop. Yeah, Rico. I think Rico got a new one. Rico got a couple of new things, I think, to set him up right. I know for a while, I think Rico was using like one of those ThinkPads. One of those ThinkPads you get from, when you're working like a business job and they give you the ThinkPads. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't even know if they have computers up in Canada. Bartek saying, I do think we will trade dependent on what players fall. ET's thinking maybe that 9 spot. Oh. If that's the case, we'll know awfully quick. I mean, I say that, but then again, this is what I hate about tomorrow. This is my biggest pet peeve about the draft. The Bears will use the entirety of the clock. The Bears have had the card in for Caleb Williams for 3 months. They'll still use the entire clock. And then the draft doesn't really start until 3 because I guarantee you that Jaden Daniels is going to the Commanders. They'll use the whole clock too. And then you have to think, based on that knowledge, the Patriots are probably aware that those two are going to be the first two picks, so they essentially know what they're going to do. They'll use the whole clock. So I was going to say, if the Bills do trade into the top 10, we should know fairly quickly, but that's probably a lie. We won't. We won't know any quicker than we would know any other pick because they're all going to use the damn clock. They always do. Kills me. But regardless, we're here. Time is here. We're almost there. Draft starts tomorrow at 8. It's 1:30. So that means you carry the 2. What do we got? Like 32 hours till the NFL draft. It's here, folks. Feels like just yesterday was the Super Bowl. Tomorrow's the draft. Before you know it, the new kickoff rule will send us into the 2024 season. It's all coming together. And I can't wait to get together again tomorrow, noon Eastern, me and Rico, right here where you're at, Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. Make sure to come in and join us. We'll be taking your phone calls as well. So if you have something you want to say about the draft before it all goes down, make sure to call in tomorrow and share it with us. And then, of course, when Rico and I are done, it's the main event, round 1 of the NFL draft, right here on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. We will be live, the whole panel, me, Rico, Pierre, all the boys will be live right here for the duration of the first round, and we will find out together what Brandon Beane's got in store for us. So I cannot wait for tomorrow, folks. Super excited. I know you are too. Thanks for hanging with me today. We're almost there. We're almost there. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Get a good night's rest. We'll see you tomorrow. Much love, everybody. And as always, go Bills.